Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone present here. I would like to welcome you all to a very special edition of Tech Mahindra's Tech Talk session, where for the first time we'll be dedicating an insightful session to not a solution, but a 360-degree solution suite. Yes, we are here to talk about Navicus, Tech Mahindra's new business unit focused on driving digital transformation. I am Balvinder Kaur, and I'll be your host for today's session. We'll be covering the topic Augmented and Unified CCaaS, a holistic contact center solution delivered via Navicus. I hope that this session will help you understand how contact centers can enhance productivity, increase revenue generation, and orchestrate customer experience through modernized contact center framework. Attendees, please note, as this is a live session, we will address as many questions in the end as time permits, but we will reach out to you after this session to answer all your queries. Please note, this session is getting recorded and you will get a copy of it via email after the session. Now, let me introduce you to our elite panelists. Today, we have with us Mr. Greg Weber, Chief Technology Officer, Navicus, Mr. Rob Rutledge, Head of Navicus, and Mr. Bharat Vasudevan, Chief Capability Officer from Tech Mahindra BPS. Now, I would like to hand over the dais to Mr. Bharat Vasudevan to take the session ahead. Kindly take over, Bharat.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to a lot of you who've joined today. It's an early morning for me on the West Coast. So, we were just joking before this call. I was trying to grab a quick morning tea, but awesome. It's wonderful to see about 40, 50 attendees already. And, I'm hoping to see a lot more as we move through the discussion today. Morning, Rob, Greg. Pleasure to see you guys as always, and to talk about a topic that's really close to all of us, right? Customer experience, contact centers of the future, CX tech. I mean, this is what we do for a living, and it's wonderful to get together today to share some of our views, insights, things that we've learned, and hopefully get richer for it. So. Look, as Tech Mahindra, we've been in this business now for nearly 40 years. Customer experience is what we live for, is what we really try and do for our clients and their customers. But in some sense, I think I call this the CX paradox, right? And this continues. I mean, today with the plethora of technology that's available, with the kind of access that we have to information, with omni-channel coming in, with the kind of analytics that we have at our disposal, I think there is a lot of data, a lot of information. But at some level, providing a unified customer experience continues to be a challenge. And we've seen this in conversations that we've had with our clients across industries. As an industry, we've been trying to solve, quicker, more effective responses. But at the same time, we've been focused on first contact resolution, right? And it's always been a balance between these two. And I think that balance continues to be one that a lot of clients, a lot of industries continue to grapple. So at some level, we're talking about a unified experience. At the same level, we're talking about hyper-personalization, right? We're talking about care of one. So, I'm going to tee this off with you, Rob. I mean, is this paradox going away? Are we dealing with this better, more effectively? What can we do better? Just give us some perspectives on, what are the challenges in front of us today, and how is today's technology, how is the kind of information that we have at our disposal helping us deal with this challenge?
Thanks, Prof. So it's exactly like you said, but it becomes even more difficult for our clients, because this plethora of technology, all of this data coming in about customers, what they prefer, and the way that they want to be engaged, makes it more difficult for our clients to figure out how to engage their customers and what that outcome should be. So it used to be pretty straightforward because it was mostly voice, and they would really call in for specific things. We knew what they would be calling in for. We could create tools for those specific things that they were calling in for. But now it could be just a larger variety of things. It's cross-channel. We want to be able to provide continuity in that conversation overall. And the biggest challenge that we have is that our clients, because of what we've been calling this digital crossroads that they're facing, they don't know which path to take, that they can't figure out what portions of data they should be bringing in about customers. We have that cool versus creepy portion of customization. How much do we let the customers know we know about them? And then how do we actually customize that experience? At the same time, the tide of their expectations is being raised by a number of firms that are doing this in a very cohesive and meaningful way. And so what that means is the customers are expecting, it doesn't matter whether you're in insurance versus retail versus some high-end services, that they're expecting more from their engagement of the people that they provide or that they buy services from. So therefore, the only thing that we know for sure is that our customers are going to be essentially falling behind if they're not doing anything. So they need to be thinking about which elements of that technology to use. Now, they're reading a bunch about generative AI and they're reading a bunch about conversational AI, and they're trying to figure out what all of this means, what it means for their customers, what it means for their bottom line, for investments, all of these pieces. And that's where Navixus comes in, because we can help them think through all of those individual pieces and bring it together in a cohesive way that's beyond the traditional questions of, should I outsource? Should I be answering more phones? Should I put more labor on it? Should I add chat? It's well beyond that at this point, and being able to bring that into, exactly like you said, that cohesive conversation in a modern contact center way.
Awesome. And look, for me, the key word is cohesive, right? Cohesive and unified, and that's really what we're trying to do. So tell us a little bit more, Rob, about Navixus. I know we've been like super excited about this new unit that we've launched. There's a lot of work that's gone within our organization to make this happen. Talk to us a little bit more about the purpose of Navixus. How does it all come together in the context of cohesive and unified customer experience?
That's perfect. Yeah, I'd love to. So Navixus brings together two big pieces. It brings together an acquisition that Tech Mahindra made about coming up on 3 years ago now, and a portion of Tech Mahindra called AAC, which is Analytics, Automation, and Consulting. And it brings it together into one business unit that is called Navixus, and Navixus represents that navigating of those digital crossroads. That's that X in there for our customers. So bring it all together and it becomes Navixus. And that brings together what I believe are some of the best parts of both companies, and that capability, which really play off of each other incredibly powerfully. So those pieces come together to look at that end-to-end capability and what we've called the 4Ds: define, design, develop, and deploy. So we can do everything from the upfront, helping them think through what their customer experience strategy should be. And for us, that customer experience strategy comes down to really pretty simple questions. What do you want that customer to feel like after they've engaged with you? So the customers are going to feel something. It's a question of whether you're going to define what they feel, or whether they're just going to feel something that's been put together haphazardly and not that cohesive experience that we're talking about. So all the way through deploying some of these specific technologies. Now, we can't deploy anything. It's such a everything. It's such a fragmented market that it would be impossible for us to think that we should be, experts in all types of technology that play in this field. There's something in the neighborhood of 400 recognized CCaaS offerings. We're going to talk about what CCaaS means later. But there's something in the neighborhood of 400 of them. And that's impossible for us to do. But when we look at the leaders, we look at the ones that are differentiating, we look at the ones that are in the analyst magic quadrant, those are the ones that we play in much more readily, and that we help our customers think through what those experiences are. So that's in that define, design, and then developing. We will also provide custom applications. In many cases, our clients have legacy systems that hold either customer data, transaction data, and maybe it's even unstructured large data files that we can help them structure that data and bring it to relevance for their customer experience, for their back office, for their operations in a more effective way. Now, these technologies are relatively specific, and because they're relatively specific, in some cases, clients don't want to spin up their own help desk, their own capability to be able to manage these services, and we will manage these services for them as well in that end-to-end kind of a fashion. And whether that means taking over the operations of a function like workforce management or quality assurance or knowledge management, or whether it means running the technology systems themselves so that we can take their actual help desk tickets and resolve those help desk tickets and help them figure out where there's challenges in that customer experience and where it's falling apart.
Thanks, Rob. Awesome. This is awesome. And in some sense, it's exciting to see how, with everything that we're doing with Navixus and the traditional managed services business that we've built, the story from a customer journey standpoint, from a customer experience standpoint, really completes itself with everything that Navixus brings to play. Okay. So, and before we get into CCaaS, I want to talk about one of the COEs that you brought up, which is at the core of everything that we do at Navixus, which is CX technologies. Greg, I'm going to pull you in here. Okay. You've lived this, you've breathed this for many, many years. Before we get into CCaaS, just give us your perspective on CX tech itself, right? How have you seen CX tech evolve over the years? Where do you see us as an organization playing a role here? How do you see CX tech really fundamentally impacting customer journeys as we move forward? Let's talk about that.
Sure. I think that's a great kind of transition there. So I think CX technology has kind of evolved a lot in a bunch of different dimensions. And let's go back and just kind of do a quick little history lesson on why it's evolved and changed so drastically over time. I think the first big thing is what are customers using for communication devices? Right? We went from kind of a landline at our house to using computers to now kind of the mobile devices, and these devices are coming from everywhere. And when you see the evolution of these different types of devices, what's really changing are kind of the spectrum of touch points that our clients can interact with us with. Like when you had your phone at your house, you were talking to an agent, or you were talking to an IVR, and you're pressing one, pressing two, and then we moved to computers, right? And then we had all the web and email and stuff like that. And then mobile now opened up kind of like SMS and applications. So just as kind of Rob was discussing before, our customers are expecting all of these channels to be cohesive and coherent. And because we've changed all these devices over time, we've opened up a plethora of these different kind of channels. But in the same motion, we get a bunch of new context coming in from these devices. I mean, think back to that phone, right? When you're calling in a phone, you basically got your phone number. And when you have a computer, you type in some logins and some passwords, and you can share some more stuff. And now mobile devices, you can get location and biometrics. So the amount of information that we can now leverage as part of those interactions are becoming really significant to driving really great experiences. So let's look at, once we've opened up those channels, and once we've kind of had this additional context, this has fundamentally changed what our customers are expecting from CX tech, right? Number one is, it's their expectations of the technology, the speed, the access, the coherency, the personalization. How they interact with technology is fundamentally different. It's not just about pressing a number or saying something or going to a website or clicking a button, but it's a much more natural type of interaction. And the things that our customers are that are valuing are changing too. It's not just about money. It's about their time. It's about friction, and all of those things. So how has CX tech evolved, right? It's evolved in the natural interactions. We want to have contextual experiences and an optimized journey. So when we look at our contact centers today, we were kind of doing four basic things, right? We were kind of trying to do some IVR, those self-service applications. We were routing to agents with the right skills to try to help us. We did some basic reporting and some workforce management to figure out if we had the right people staffed at the right time. Those things are now evolving in two different dimensions. So this is really where the tech is changing to meet all those things that Rob laid out and what I just discussed. The first way is it's no longer just about what we call directed dialogues, or press one and press two. It's about conversational AI. It's about natural interactions, being able to come back and forth, to be able to solve problems in a non-linear way. We obviously want to try to automate as much as possible. We hear bots everywhere. IVRs are called voice bots now, and chat bots and social media bots. And we're bringing all of these bots to play to help our clients drive the outcomes that they want. Having stacks of reports of how we're doing doesn't do anybody any good in today's world. We want real insights and performance analytics in order to know where to improve. And it's no longer just about a voice channel. It's about being able to optimize your workforce to do all those digital channels, solve that digital crossroads as we're staffing and monitoring our agents. So those are how some of those things are evolving. CX technology is also extending, right? It's no longer just about, I have a voice call, or I have a chat session, or I've been on the web. It's about what we call omni-channel engagement, cohesive, coherent experiences as you're going along your journey. We're making huge advances in knowledge, bringing knowledge not only to the client to be able to self-serve, but also to the agents. We're supporting the agents with additional automation, processes to drive this. And lastly, it all fits kind of part of a customer journey. So we're seeing a lot of different dimensions of CX technology maturing in order to meet the demands that our customers are expecting.
There's a great point that Greg brought up that I had skipped completely, and it's my fault. The agent experience has changed dramatically as well. What they're doing, how they're doing it. Everything from I started out my career as a call center agent, and I sat in training. I was in there for kind of 3.5, 4 weeks. And then they let me take some calls. Then they told me how terrible those calls were. And then they let me take more calls after some more coaching. And then they were moderately better. And eventually I got okay at taking calls. But when I was taking calls, I would listen to the customer. I would look up the customer. And then I would try to go search around for the answers of what they were trying to find. And then at the end of the call, I would spend a significant amount of time documenting what happened during the conversation. At least trying to figure out what happened to the conversation. I was relatively new. And so, but now when we think about things like contextual knowledge coming up for our agents, when we think about auto summarization, so they no longer have to summarize those calls at the end, it'll be summarized for them. When we think about just the ability to be able to coach our agents better and more effectively in near real time. So it's no longer has to be a random sampling of QA, but can be much more focused on helping them develop and helping them achieve what they're trying to do. The agent experience has changed dramatically over time. That's a great call out, Greg.
Yeah, I think just to continue on that, if you kind of merge together all those business objectives that you were referring to and some of the tech that I was kind of bringing together, what it really leads to are two macro themes in order to be successful in contact center in the future. Number one, it's kind of like the title of this whole thing, the unified and augmented or orchestrated experiences, where a lot of components are now coming together that sometimes didn't, or it was rough of how they work together, but to provide those experiences. And then on the second part is contacts were typically built as agents being the glue, just as everything you just described, right? You were searching for knowledge, or you were trying to figure out what to do. The agents were really the glue of a process. And businesses evolved like that, right? They had to train differently, and they had to make people, how to do things and where to go and how to get feedback. What we're now seeing is we want contact centers for people to be the human touch to a process. And when you start becoming the human touch to a process, the processes start becoming automated. You have a lot of different ways that clients can solve the problems. When they're actually interacting with a contact center, they kind of need some empathy. They kind of need that extra help and that extra kind of bonding with a business and what they're trying to do. So orchestrating our components together and then allowing agents to become the human touch on an interaction as opposed to just being the glue to a process.
Awesome. Look, and stay with that thought, Greg, because I'm going to come back and we're going to dive deeper into understanding the tech itself. But let me, Rob, let me ask you something before we get back to Greg. We've spoken about a cohesive experience. We've spoken about a unified experience. I love the way Greg articulated the whole, bringing the human touch back into the process, right? Now, as we're doing this, would you agree with me that some of these traditional definitions that we had on what is front office, what is back office, what happens behind the process, I at least it's my opinion that some of these boundary lines are beginning to diffuse, and that, if you want to provide a unified experience to your customers, you need to be able to have unified processes in the back end. We're no longer talking front office, back office. We're talking all of it coming together. So in that context, do you see Navixus itself being something more than just front office? I mean, are we doing things today that are impacting the end-to-end business process more holistically, in a more cohesive manner, so that then translates into providing the right kind of experience for our clients' customers? So give us a little bit of perspective on that before I jump straight back to Greg and we dive deeper into CX tech and that space itself.
Yeah, for sure. And we see a lot of that kind of extending of that customer experience, those traditional lines, what those boundaries used to be is blurring completely. I'll go back to my very ancient example of when I was first in a contact center. When I was in a contact center and the client would order something, I would have, depending on what they ordered, I'd have to fill out a physical piece of paper. And it was a half a slip of paper that I would fill out, and I put it in my little outbox in my cube. And then twice a day, somebody would come and pick it up in the outbox in the cube. And then half the time they would come back and say, oh, we don't have that. Now you need to call the customer back and figure out if they want something else, or, whatever the resolution was. And so, now when we think about, it's not even, and then it went from there, it went to a little bit of Greg's evolution. It went from there to copying and pasting the customer information into a separate order screen, and then now it is not only automated in being able to bring those processes together and not having to copy and paste in the first place, but checking real-time inventory, getting it searched, providing them options on whether they want to pick up that product or whether they want it delivered to them, if they want to go get it from a Whole Foods, or whether they want to be able to have it delivered right to their home, and it can all be done in a relatively real time. So not only are those services being blurred from what used to be front office versus back office, but now we have a new set of modern tools around process and task mining that can make those services that are being provided much more streamlined. It can identify right away whether there's areas of opportunity in training or in automation, and it can even predict what the benefit could be from actually improving those processes and using those capabilities that we have. And this isn't the old school kind of process mining like we're used to, sticky notes and whiteboards and stopwatches and clipboards. This is data-based, non-controversial data that we can show them exactly how agents are using a desktop, or exactly how our systems are logging the information that's being put in, to be able to streamline those processes and then look for additional areas to be able to extend that portion. The last portion I'll give you of that is that closed loop process that we used to have. Because the customer service in many cases is the interface to the client, being able to get that insight back upstream to the marketing group, to the sales group, used to be an incredibly manual process. They'd either listen to calls, or they'd have focus group with agents, focus groups with customers, try to figure out what the reality is in between. And now that can be brought together in a much more, not only quicker, more real time, but a much more actionable way, through things like voice analytics and being able to understand exactly what customers were calling for. And the simple aspect of what their intent was can not only help some of the technology be tuned that Greg was talking about, but can also help other portions of the organization, whether that be, again, sales, marketing, but also like product development. Or a lot of people calling about product challenges that they had no idea were even an issue. So then they can go back to manufacturing, R&D, try to figure out how to be able to release and improve those products to be able to improve everything from an end-to-end basis.
What's amazing about that is, you think about the North Star that you just kind of described, and, I could see, just like listen to it. I'm sure there's a lot of other people listening too. They're like, wow, that just sounds like how I interact with some businesses today. and their expectations are right there. So it's not like people haven't seen Star Trek and Star Wars. I mean, it all makes sense in the North Star, but our clients are having a lot of problems getting there. There's a lot of challenges that they need to overcome that, we deal with all the time at Navixus, right? Number one, to get these systems to work, it costs money. It costs investment. There's a lot of budget constraints that a lot of organizations on, even if they have the vision. How do we start kind of creating budgets and business cases to deliver that vision that you just described? There's other ones that we discuss all the time. Like they have such inefficient processes that you don't see. How do you expose those out and make those things become efficient? They're stuck in contracts or obsolete technology that while they want to do all these things, they're stuck. And these disparate platforms have to come together for that vision that you just did. And what's really amazing is because the expectations have been set by other organizations, I'm not going to name all, but some of them have that vision. The CSAT or the customer satisfaction of other clients that aren't driving that, they end up being like very dissatisfied with those expectations. So it's a full circle problem that we see kind of delivering that.
Yeah, I totally agree, Greg. And I guess, and we're seeing some of those companies that what used to be their core competency in some of these legacy systems have become a bit of an anchor for them, trying to figure out they can't exactly expose those to clients. It's very difficult for their agents, hopefully work beyond green screens, but it's very difficult for their agents to be able to access that data. So then how do they come up and how do they, modernize in a way that's meaningful without, at least in their view, putting their entire business at risk? And I guess I would argue that they're putting their entire business at risk by not figuring out a way to be able to modernize. It's in a different way for sure, but I mean, it's an interesting paradox that they're facing. And that's, again, back to the digital crossroads, helping them think through what those possibilities are, helping them think through a meaningful start, in that journey for their customers, for their agents, for their shareholders.
Yeah, no, it's a great point, and I kind of laughed a little bit when you said hopefully we're beyond green screens, and like everybody here, look, obviously we are, but that's not true. Even 2 years ago, we were at a collection company. We were doing some agent observations, and it was literally F4, F2, press K, X, Z, and that's how they were solving their processes. We also dealt with, a retail organization that whenever they were actually doing a sale, they had to get out from their computer and walk over to a cash register in order to actually, put in the order. So we take it for granted that these things are solved, but they are not. There are a lot of mainframes and green screens and antiquated processes that, we have to help navigate in order for them to deliver the visions that we're all discussing here.
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, the good old, words ring true even today, which is you can have the best of technology, but if you put it on top of a bad process, it's going to fail you, right? So I think in some sense, the underlying challenges haven't changed. Get your process fixed, ensure that the process works for your customer. And then, when you lay your tech on top of that, it's always going to work for you. But it's easier said than done. We all know that.
Yeah.
Now, as we talk about all of this, and I'm going to sort of get deeper with you, Greg, in terms of the tech that's available itself, right? And you've spent a lot of time in on-prem. You've been leading the charge for us with respect to some of the cloud solutions that we're working with. And today we work with a plethora of partners, right? We've got some of the hyperscalers, we've got the traditional players. So just just talk us through some of your experiences here. What's the underlying on-prem to cloud challenge that still confronts us today, confronts our clients today? You started talking about some of your experiences in retail, in some of the other industries. So just walk me through what a typical set of conversations that you're having today looks like.
Yeah, I think the first place to start is when we say, hey, we're gonna kind of move on-prem to cloud. What does that even mean in a CCaaS world? And I think the first thing you need to kind of appreciate and kind of go through is contact center still the center of the universe for customer engagement? Right? I mean, that's the first question that we need to answer. And the short answer is no. It's a critical component of it. And this is a big shift, right? Because contact centers used to be the center of the universe. And when there were limited touch points and, there was a focus on interactions rather than a journey itself. So if you go all the way back and rewind the clock, if you were going to interact as a business to your customers, it was either the customer's going to a retail location, maybe like a letter in the mail or something, or you called an 800 number. And that was kind of it. And then, obviously digital channels arose, right? The email, the chat, those were really handled by CCaaS and CRMs and what have you. But very quickly, the ways we interacted, those touch points expanded way beyond that traditional paradigm we were used to, right? There was no more structured back and forth with an automated system or a live agent. It's websites and social media and mobile applications. In fact, these touch points are serviced by a completely separate tech stack in different systems, and they're actually even owned in organizations by different parts. So CCaaS is part of the journey, but it's not the entire journey. So this is where it gets really, really interesting. From a business perspective and an IT perspective, they can't afford to have this disjointed experience, everything that we just kind of discussed before, right? So, for example, someone navigating a website and then they call into the contact center, it's like they're starting over. Like, you just can't do that. You need a modernized contact center framework in order to prevent this, right? We need the interactions to be part of a journey. Someone's calling from an issue. We know there's an event, so we can now give a personalized and productive kind of answer or interaction with them. We want customers to be able to naturally escalate, between different touch points, that omni-channel view. And we need to make sure automation is there to drive the outcomes that they want. Obviously, CCaaS vendors are expanding all the time and they're evolving. They're trying to add more channels and they're adding knowledge and more journey orchestration and more history that used to be in the domain of others. But they don't have everything covered. A lot of interactions are happening when, CCaaS isn't even kind of aware of it. So it's not the center of the universe anymore, is the first point. The second big point is how to actually do this is not as simple as I'm going to just take my servers that I had blinking and clicking and all that stuff and throw them in the cloud. Like, it just doesn't work like that. There are 4 macro things in order to, because you're not the center of the universe anymore, when you're moving to the cloud, that we help our clients kind of navigate through. The first one is that paradigm between lift and shift and transformation, right? We have a lot of clients that have been running for years on a system, and then they say, I want to move to the cloud. Well, I think we just discussed, like, lift and shift isn't going to work. The world of CX has totally changed. So how do you balance kind of making progress going to the cloud, bringing some transformation, but how do you kind of phase that? How do you build a foundation and then allow that transformation to happen over time? The second big one is financial. What most organizations have done is they bought in really big, what they call perpetual licenses. They bought some software and they are just going to use the heck out of it. They paid it forever, maybe a little bit of maintenance. Well, there's an entire shift now on how you consume these as a monthly service. So we have to work with the CFOs and we have to work through the financials of when you move to the cloud, it's a little bit more of ongoing consumption, ongoing monthly service, as opposed to this really big, amount of money you need to spend up front, and it changes, a lot of those different things. The third dimension is what we call elastic designs. When you were building these big, I call them battleships, right? You kept adding and bigger and bigger and bigger, and you wanted to deal with your max volume, and you built these really big things. Well, in this world of CCaaS, as we just discussed with all these goals, this is going to go up and down. You're going to see volume shift between different channels. You're going to see different seasonal type things. So we design for elasticity now, not just for peak planning. And probably the biggest paradigm shift that organizations have to get around is they are no longer in charge of their upgrades. They're no longer in charge of their when it happens. You know, these CCaaS vendors are out there. The way they're making money is economies of scale. They want everyone to be current. There's a monthly charge. You got to be current. But now organizations need to be able to kind of be pushed a little bit more rapidly down those transformation journeys because the technology is shifting so much. So there's a lot of pros and cons that we help balance together. Those are some of the really big things that I'm seeing in the market right now.
Awesome. And let me add one more thing into the mix. So how is return on investment getting measured, right? You spoke about lift and shift versus transformation, about the upfront versus an ongoing nature of investments that's there now, elastic designs, no longer being in charge of their upgrades. But do you think at a fundamental level, whether it was on-prem, whether it's the cloud today, there are still challenges with respect to really measuring impact, measuring outcome, and therefore measuring the return on whatever they're investing?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. When we start looking at, operational challenges like that, we need to kind of create some new dimensions to measure it. If you're just going with your standard, here's my average handle time, here's my volume, this is how many agents I need, and everybody builds a spreadsheet saying, I'm going to deflect this much, and I'm going to be able to save a certain amount of headcount. Like those business cases are still there. We fill in those spreadsheets. But in today's world of everything that Rob was describing and you were describing, I'm describing, really is about holistic experiences. We're looking at kind of overall customer value, not just the interactions. We're looking at what their journeys look like in terms of them acquiring and becoming really, strong promoters of brands. So there's a lot of indirect things that we're building into the models now. We're also looking at how do we make things more operationally efficient without sacrificing, the experiences that we're providing. So, kind of like when we're talking about lift and shift a little bit, everybody loves to talk the language they were used to, go to whatever the vendor is, it's that vernacular. But we have to really look through about the features and services and understand which ones do we want to start getting rid of, which ones map really well into the future, and which are new things that they're just not experienced at all, and then correlate those to the different areas. So we focus evaluating this on a couple different dimensions. Number one is how does engagement with the client change, right? So when we talk about transformation, how are we driving it? How do the finances change for doing it? How does it fit within that journey? Because if the journey's disjointed, it doesn't matter. What does IT's ecosystem look like? Like, how are you going to link into it? Because it's not a silo. We talked about all processes now. So how do these become workflows and automation? How do we get analytics from the system to be able to get key insights on where to improve, where to keep investing on? It's not just about drawing a flow on a whiteboard. It's about the complete solution of bringing IT and the business together, and then that delivery mechanism. So we evaluate everything we do across those dimensions, not just one single financial dimension.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm sorry, Rob. Go ahead.
I was just going to say it's a great point, Greg. And I guess the other thing that's exciting to me about some of these cloud applications and moving in this direction is it also allows us to be able to test specific capabilities to be able to check that ROI. So we can roll out a capability, Bharath, to your point, we can roll out a capability to a small group of agents. Imagine it being a pod of 15 agents, and we can test that capability, test the CSAT, whether it's measured in NPS or customer effort score. We can test the click-through rate of customers that they talk through. We can test a bunch of different things to be able to determine exactly what their ROI is of a specific capability. And then the last point that when I was thinking when Greg was talking there is when we start thinking about bringing all these people together, these people, processes, and technology together into this cohesiveness, The other thing that we run into as a small fallacy of some of our customers is that lift and shift means that they're using the new technology to do things the same way. If they do that, they're only going to get about this much benefit. If they use the technology and then rethink, exactly like Greg was talking about, back up and think, how do I want to engage with my customers? Does it make sense the way I've been doing it before? And this brings it a little bit kind of full circle. Fix the process, fix the way that I want to engage with them, then use the technology to be able to do it. Then you're going to get a lot more benefit. And then related to that same fallacy of the customers is customizing the hell out of a brand new system in order to be able to have it do things the way that they've been doing before. And that just makes everything more expensive. The implementation, the maintenance of it, everything, rather than using the power of these new systems, which is really quite incredible.
Right. No, and I think I think I like the point you made about being able to test this in a closed group, in a control group, in smaller environments, and therefore assess the impact of what you're bringing in, and then look at how to scale. Right. That's really, I mean, it's easier said than done, but that there are levers today to be able to manage that process. So tell us, therefore, Rob. I mean, look, we've done tons of these implementations over the years. And just staying with the theme of measuring outcome, measuring impact, measuring ROI. Any examples of clients across industries, the kind of impact we've been able to deliver with all the work that we've been doing around Navixus in general, but CX Tech, CCaaS specifically. You want to talk us through some use cases, some examples of our experience here?
Absolutely. Like there's some of the very tactical things, like implementing automatic QA. So we had a client that had hundreds of onshore people that were listening to calls, and there was very high call volume, this client, but they were listening to calls, and literally they were looking at or monitoring roughly 1.5 or 2% of the call volume that they were listening to manually. We put in automatic QA for them, and not only were they able to monitor 100% of the calls using technology, but they were able to cut that team down from a couple of hundred people to kind of 30-ish people. So that was direct kind of improvement of quality, reducing the cost. Yes, there was some cost of the implementation up front, but the payback period was relatively low. It was within a year for the payback period, and they're going to continue to reap those benefits into the future. We had another client that their overall operations were really kind of broken. They were looking to try to figure out how to be able to outsource their operations. And let me tell you, outsourcing a broken operation is really a recipe for disaster. So we went in there and helped them figure out everything from their operations in the first place and helped them fund an entire transformation by taking over their operations, making it much more predictable, bringing it to a lower cost labor that they then plowed that savings into the technology, the exact same kind of technology that we're talking about here, to be able to bring it into a modern contact center environment. And then they re-onshored a chunk of their overall labor and capability for some of their customers because they determined that was the approach that they wanted to take for their customer experience. So there's lots of these examples of how we've helped customers, not only figure out what the challenges are, be able to help them solve those challenges, and we'll actually predict what the impact, the financial impact of that will be, both on the cost side and the benefit side for our customers overall.
Fantastic. And look, just hearing you talk about the breadth of clients we've worked with across industries and that we continue to do, I think there's so much we've done, but so much more that we can. And on that note, look, I'm gonna ask both of you, right? In some sense, we've moved now from customer experience to customer success, right? And some of the client organizations we work with, senior stakeholders, we are now seeing, enabled by every lever that we discussed over the last 45 minutes, we are seeing customer success genuinely become a boardroom agenda, genuinely become a lever for driving growth in our client organizations, right? So, before we wrap up and open up for questions, would like both of you to come in and just share your perspectives on, the customer success organization itself, with everything that we're doing in CX Tech, CCaaS, and influencing customer journeys. how are you seeing that transition to the boardroom happen? How are you seeing the challenges that we as service providers are going to deal with over the next 5-10 years? Maybe Rob, you can come in, and then Greg.
Yeah, I'll start. I mean, it's the link between, we'll just pick one portion of customer success and measurement of Net Promoter Score. The link between Net Promoter Score and retention was clear for a long time. But the ability now to be able to mine big data and to be able to quantify that into a dollar amount, into a per share value that's driven by a better customer experience is incredible now. And it's a nonlinear approach, and it's not a trivial task, but it's really getting the attention of the customers and the retention of those customers, the lack of churn of those customers. Happy customers complain less. Happy customers buy more. Happy customers do all of the kind of behavior that our clients want. Yet it's a challenge sometimes to be able to get the attention to that. Now it's easier to be able to do that with this, with the exposure of these capabilities and the impact directly to shareholder value.
Yeah, I think to build on that, I think for a long time in our history, businesses had visions, but the technology was out of reach or not there or not available in order for them to realize the true experiences they wanted to deliver to their clients, deliver to their customers, for all those outcomes that Rob just discussed. So at the boardroom, I kind of typically see kind of 6 different themes that they want to push out from a customer experience thing. One of them we've covered in tons of times during this conversation, right? They want their clients to have a coherent journey. They want to be able to push the journey. They want it to be coherent. The more coherent it is, the more efficient it is for the business. The more fans they become advocates and go on there. And they want their clients, they want their customers to have their own preferences, right? They don't want to force them into a paradigm. They want the technology to kind of abstract that. So it's just kind of interacting no matter what the tools are, what the channels are, what have you. The boardroom wants to become more proactive. The reactive relationships tend to start becoming a thing of the past, right? That is a bad thing when they're being reactive to something. They want to be super proactive. So as many of these tools start coming together for the customer experience, they can drive a much better CSAT, a much better NPS if they're proactive about it. And they want their clients to feel part of the solution. They want them to have contextual knowledge, and they want to have awareness, and they want to have brand out there in every single type of interaction. And then the last 2 is they want the power to be able to provide customized offers to people. They don't want these just to be packages or force people or leave people wanting. They want these kind of interactions to always end in kind of those customized. I think you started the whole conversation off, Bharath, of those hyper personalized experiences. And the last is they want to treat all their customers as people, like that. No longer it's a number or what's your client ID. They want to treat it, and that the boardroom really, really wants to drive those to hit the results that I think kind of Rob just laid out there.
Fantastic. Look, we can go on and on, but I'm just cognizant of, and this is an exciting topic. We live this and breathe this every day. So, but I know we've got about 12 minutes on the clock, Balvinder. So maybe we should take some of the questions that are coming through, and I'll just, I don't know how you want to do this. You want to pick them off the chat window or?
Yeah, so I will pose the questions. So I'll take up the first
why
question,
don't you
which
post
is,
and I'll direct it to either Greg or Rob, or I could.
so the questions are already, people are posting the questions in the chat window. If you want, you can take it, or I can just present it to the people, the panelists.
Yeah, why don't
I don't have my chat window open, so somebody could read the questions.
Yeah, so I take it up, Bharat, in that case.
Okay.
So the first question is addressed to you, Bharat.
Right up front,
yes.
I can see a lot of questions coming through, so we won't be able to respond to all of them in the next 11-12 minutes, but we'll certainly, figure out a way to get everything in and, get it back in terms of our responses. Okay. So let's maybe pick 3 or 4 of these now, and then we'll collate everything else and get it back to it.
Okay. So I'll pick up the first question. Maybe we can address the first question to you, Bharat. It came directly for you.
Okay.
So, as the question is, the people want to know that how is Navicus different than rest of the offerings? Why is it new business unit and not a new capability? What's the difference?
Okay. Look, at the outset, everything that we do is a capability, right? I mean, capability, philosophically speaking, is what the organization builds in terms of competence, what it owns in terms of competence. So everything that we do as an organization, in some sense, therefore is capability. But let's leave that aside, right? What's Navicus and what's different about it? Look, we've been in the business of servicing our customers and helping them with their client journeys now for about 40 years. We've been in the managed services world for that long. We worked with a variety of clients. But as we move forward, we realize that there is a run the business side of what we do, and then there is a change the business side of what we do, right? And I'm not going to say these are parallel lines. They will intersect, they will move away, but it's important for us as a service provider to recognize that the skill sets, the competencies, the type of people that we require for these two parts of what we do, and therefore how we help our clients, are going to be different, right? So the underlying intent with which we created and we launched Navicus is to have an engine within business process services at Tech Mahindra that focuses on working with our clients to change their business and therefore to change the way we do business with them, right? And that change could be in terms of, I mean, we spoke about building better business processes. We spoke about, how do you transform the way you do things today before you apply tech or before you bring in managed services on top of that. We spoke about putting in place all those right measurement mechanisms to measure the right things so that then we're able to track improvement. Right? So what we wanted to do was to create an engine within our organization that does this and only this for a living, right? And works very closely with the run the business side, the managed services arm. And that was the entire objective with which we created Navixus, right? To be that change agent, to be that, that part of our organization that is focused on looking ahead and looking to improve the way we do business.
Yep. I agree completely. There's another one. I finally managed to access chat. Sorry, Olivia. So, and I'm going to actually to pick one of these out because it comes up a lot, and we should have covered it. And I'm going to ask it to Greg. Can you please explain the difference between UCaaS and CCaaS?
Yes.
The difference between UCaaS, CCaaS?
Yes, people are often confused between the terms.
Got it. To be honest, like I think I took it for granted, like that they were separate things, kind of like coffee and tea, right? They're both drinks and they have some things in common, but they're different between one being brewed and one being infused. But I guess I get it where people are confused. So, okay, so what are the acronyms? UCaaS stands for Unified Communications as a Service. CCaaS is Contact Center as a Service. So they both fall under the umbrella of like cloud-based communication services, but they service totally different parts of an organization, right? So think about unified communications as like kind of like the conglomeration of like a bunch of like communication tools, right? Like what device are you using to make a phone call? Inbound, outbound. What are we using? Like this video conference is an example of unified communications. Chat and IM. We add presence, like, are you available? Are you on vacation? We want to share a bunch of these different services that come together, and then we kind of want to streamline the interface to improve productivity. It's for the users. But the question is who are the users, right? The users for UC, that's a tongue twister. They're typically kind of the knowledge workers. How do you interact with each other? How do you, do business meetings? How do you do B2B, B2C? Have an effective meeting, collaborate effectively from any device and anywhere. But when you look at those interactions, they're scheduled or they're ad hoc. But I guess ad hoc's going away from the business world. We schedule everything. But the point is that it's really, no one is sitting there timing the interaction. Like, how long did you talk? How quickly did you answer? And no one's monitoring everything you do. And, nobody's unfortunately holding people accountable for outcomes or forcing even people to interact. Like, hey, I'll be there in 5 minutes. Like, those kind of things would never fly in a contact center, right? A contact center services are fundamentally different, right? As everything we described, it's about an organization providing a channel to be able to manage customer interactions, right? It's the bots, it's the IVRs, it's the routing strategies, it's the analytics, it's omni-channel, it's workforce management tools. Is someone doing the right job? Are they where they should be? But we measure everything. I mean, seconds matter in a contact center. The processes you follow matter in a contact center. So, as I'm talking about this, I think I realize where some of the confusion comes in, right? Because historically, contact centers and general telephony were kind of combined, right? You couldn't have an agent interact with somebody if they didn't have a channel, like, or a phone or something to communicate. But as technology has evolved, especially on the desktop, we can start delivering these interactions between our agents and our self-services without having the general telephony or the phones, if you may, go on there. So they diverged, right? Contact centers, you did routing and self-service and management tools, and UC just kind of added more collaboration tools. But the problem then becomes is when you look at some of the clients that have these disparate platforms and these things they're trying to move from, they're usually combined still. I mean, think about a contact center that has a few hundred agents, but they decided to give some executives phones and they gave the lobby some phones. Well, those phones are hanging off the contact center, right? So then all of a sudden everyone's like, I want to modernize my contact center. What the heck do I do with these other users? Or think about the flip paradigm. I have all knowledge workers, but I need about 10 agents to just deal with some of my customer interactions. As you keep modernizing the unified communications, that starts falling down of how do you support it. And vendors in the industry have kind of taken different tacks for this, right? Like NICE and Amazon are really CCaaS, and they partner with UCaaS vendors in order to deliver kind of both of these services. Genesis Cloud and Five9, great contact center, but they also have some kind of basic telephony types of services, and they partner for the advanced ones. So I guess I get where the confusion comes from. It's not just what markets they serve, but we typically were in these combined platforms that are now diverging tremendously.
Awesome. And look, this is a great segue because you can't have a webinar these days without this question. So I'm going to pop that question again to you, Greg, right? We spoke about CCaaS and UCaaS. We spoke about traditional channels continuing to exist with technology. Now let's throw our friend Mr. AI into the mix. Okay. So, and you spoke about human interactions earlier. So talk to us a little bit about your perspective on AI and what's AI doing to CX tech. Where are you going to place human interactions and the human in the loop and all of this? Let's hear it from you, Greg, on that before I bring up the wrap up for today's discussion.
I'm kind of smiling a little bit. I think that's almost a whole nother seminar rather than a 1 minute ending. I will say this just overall. I think that there are a number of really different parts of any type of contact center. You think about the journey from awareness and acquiring, how they consume technology, how you get assistance. Once you're working with your automated flows, the initial dialogue, who you are and what you want, and what technologies am I going to service you by, delivering those self-services and then getting them to agents. If you need to get to an agent, how does an agent take in that session, figure out what you want, how do they engage with you, how do they handle, and to some of the things we talked about, how do they wrap up those conversations? Once we have human capital, the agents themselves, we have to recruit them, and we need to select them, and we need to train them, and we need to upskill them. And then we need to monitor the contact center, right? We need to make sure the workforce is there and the quality and feedback and this. What I would tell you is if you look across this, and as I said, it's a whole nother seminar, there's about 35 different distinct areas that we kind of can break down how CCaaS and CX kind of fit into a journey. And AI is affecting these in every different dimension. Generative AI is helping us summarize and create content and understand intent a little bit better. And there's a lot of just general AI that's helping us route differently and helping us to figure out what's happening in our contact center and to get additional brands. So I'm going to punt a little bit on kind of getting to that next level because I think we only have a minute left. But this AI technology is being infused into CCaaS at a rapid clip, and Navixus can help you harness the power of AI. What I'll leave you with is AI used to be an advantage for organizations. It is now becoming table stakes. And if you don't have that, you're going to fall behind really quickly.
Thank you. And Rob, quick 20, 30 seconds on this before I wrap up.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Greg. The AI and figuring out exactly how to leverage AI in a responsible way for, again, there's three stakeholders, our agents, our customers, and the shareholders is incredibly important.
Thank you. Thank you, Rob, Greg. Look, we're on the hour. Lovely conversation. I'd like to thank both of you for being wonderful panelists today, providing your insights. I think what I'd like to leave everyone who's joined our session today is, we started by talking about cohesive experience. We started by talking about unified experiences. And that's really what we're trying to create at the end of the day, right? We're trying to create a customer experience journey where every customer who reaches out to our clients through any channel feels important and feels that their issue has been addressed, that their ask has been addressed. Now, everything that we're doing with respect to our technologies, with respect to our services, with respect to all the wrappers we're putting on that, we're trying to measure that outcome. And that's the only outcome that matters to us and that matters to our clients at the end of the day. On that note, thank you once again. Thanks to everyone who's joined. We will grab some of the questions that have come into the chat window, put that together, as I said. But it's been a great 1 hour, and I hope everyone who's joined has really benefited from some of the insights that we've got out of this. So thank you, Rob, Greg, Balwinder. Thanks for setting this up, and wishing everyone a good day.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Have a
Bye-bye.
good day.